first thing to do is to welcome you all to the session and to say that Joe and I, Joe you'll be meeting later, are from Calvium, and Calvium is very pleased to be a community partner in the Bristol Technology Festival. And we're absolutely delighted to be here today and to be presenting here today. What we're going to do is kind of usual protocol, as you know, with video conferencing, and we'll take a couple of minutes before starting the presentation itself to let your people join the hop-in platform. And I'll take that time to let you know that the organizers will be recording the session, and that session is going to be made available also after today. And around today, the structure is pretty simple. Joe Reed, who's Calvium's founding MD, will talk for about 20 to 25 minutes, followed by a Q&A. So if you have any questions, can you put those questions together in the comments panel, in the comments box, and we'll be able to gather those together and attend to them later on after Joe's talk later on in the session. So today Joe's going to be sharing lessons learned from over 20 years of designing, developing and deploying digital platforms. And those platforms are both Calvium owned and managed, as well as client projects, so projects that we deliver for multiple clients. And her talk is going to center on the design phase of a platform, which is absolutely critical. And so our aim here today is to support people who are looking to innovate and who are looking to create their own maybe new, fresh businesses, and to provide general insight for those of you who are interested in the subject. So I think we've taken about a couple of minutes, and everybody's on board. So let's formally say, right, let's get the event started. So welcome everybody. And the organizers, as I'd mentioned earlier, to those of you who are here, are recording the session, and there will be a chance for a meaty Q&A after the session, after Joe Reed's talk. So please, can you put your questions in the comments box during the presentation, and then we'll attend to them afterwards. And so at this point, I'm going to share my screen, and I am going to give you a little bit of an overview of Calvium. Here we go. And it should be loading, and hopefully you can see this. So Calvium is a Bristol-born company, and we're based in Bristol to this day. And we're made up of a team of around 20 specialists in research, in design, in software engineering, and project management. And together, as you can see, we have a diverse client base. The common threads that run through are creativity and innovation, and that's always underpinned by a strong co-design and collaborative ethos. And Joe will talk a bit more about some of the projects that we do later on in her presentation, and that'll give you a real sense of the variety of our work. So let's now move into thinking about platforms, because that's why we're here, designing and delivering platforms for stratospheric success. So when we think about platforms and their impact upon us, upon society, and how we act in and upon the world, we do that largely these days through digital platforms. And indeed, I'm in the process of writing an article at the moment about the kind of the societal shift, and because of the rapid pace of technological change. And so I'm just going to read a little bit to you. Last week, I arranged to meet a friend at Bristol's Harbourside. Alexa tells me it's going to be a sunny day, so I use my Voy app to locate a nearby scooter, scan the QR code, and make my way into town. It's heaving when I arrive, so I use the Find My app to locate my friend, who's looking significantly less hot and bothered than I am when I finally spot them. We browse my friend's dating app, Happen, to see who There we go. To see who they've crossed paths with while we wait for our food, which we've ordered via the cafe's own branded app to beat the queues. Alexa clearly didn't get the memo um, about the late afternoon showers, so we order an Uber home. So that picture that I painted is totally familiar today. Even just 10 years ago, this wouldn't have been possible because none of the products had been launched. Products impacting mobility and banking, retail communication, mapping and navigation, all that I mentioned in that little story. These would all have been part of innovation programs in R&D departments or part of the tech startup ecosystem and so forth. But now they are a seamless part of our social practice and how we operate in our neighborhoods, which highlights just how much the digital era, the digital revolution, has brought about rapid changes in our lives. And this is accelerated amid COVID-19, with digital technologies underpinning our economic, our social, and our cultural lives, and causing a massive shift in motivation and in behavior. So with this only set to continue, companies need to be thinking now about innovating for their businesses. And some of that innovation may be around developing digital platforms, which leads me to introduce Calvium's MD, Joe Reed, to talk about that critical part, which is the design phase of a platform.
Thanks, Joe. Very nice introduction. And I'm now, as Joe mentioned, going to go on and hopefully give some of our experience in designing digital platforms for stratospheric, no less, success, which of course is a very nice, bold claim. But our get out of jail free card might be, well, actually, what is stratospheric success nowadays? Because one of the trends that, of course, we're seeing is that everybody now knows about the disruptive power of platforms. The famous richest people in the world have all kind of got their riches through developing global platforms. And they are now literally reaching for the skies and trying to kind of get into orbit because the Earth was not enough. Whereas, of course, other people are then actually now more than ever reflecting and saying, well, hang on, we have this precious thing. There's the Earth. Money is one thing. But what about things like the circular economy? What about things about enabling community? What about different value systems in connecting and making use of the phenomenal technology and capabilities we have now? And so success might be in saving the planet, success might be helping a community, saving lives, enabling things to be doing different. So I think, again, we each have our own definition of what success means. Some, it'll be pure, give me the money. Others will be more about the impact on the world and how you might actually affect and change society. And all of those things are valid and they all need to be designed. So we're aware that the potential of these platform business can fuel the sharing economy. And this is this basic notion that people will want to always give and change transactions, and they can be many things in many different facets. And often these completely disrupt traditional value chains that have grown up from established businesses where technology wasn't available. And so, the classic Airbnb, where people, can need to offer their homes on the platform and share it with people, can establish a very disruptive phenomena outside the traditional hotel chains and those longer ones. So again, any of these can be drivers for wanting to develop a platform and consider a platform business. So let's talk a little bit about what a platform business is. And And here's one definition from a good reference book called Platform Strategy by the Reyes. I'm guessing how to pronounce it. A business which is based on enabling value-creating interactions between external producers and consumers. This is key. We'll come back to these two things a lot in how we design. The platform provides an open, participative infrastructure for these interactions and sets governance conditions for them. So again, with all of these disruptive things, there are new implications for morals, ethics, and how you now use this new position you have in disrupting the world. The platform's overarching purpose is to consummate matches among users and facilitate the exchange of goods, services, or social currency, thereby enabling value creation for all participants. And so again, really, that is the core of the disruptive power of a platform. And again, a traditional business may then be disrupted because now you can connect people. Either the business is now redundant or there's a new way of getting things that you used to get by enabling all of this platform technologies. And this slide, I'm trying to lay out what I consider the key phases if you're contemplating designing and running a platform business. Behind any business, of course, is understanding what the value proposition is. Who is it you're making it for? Why would this be good for them? What will they get out of it? And we'll come on to, again, this key thing about it's not just about the end person. Platforms are two-sided. There's always a producer of whatever it is that the end consumer or the end user is actually wanting. So that you have to kind of always bear the two sides of that in mind. Then architecting and understanding how you might achieve that value proposition is absolutely key. So the architecting phase is more than the technology. The technology, of course, is fundamental and a critical enabler. But part of that architecture is thinking through the whole business plan, the whole business model, and thinking about the critical relationships. If you're going to disrupt a traditional, what are the things that you need? If you're selling goods to people, you need goods to put on your platform. How are those goods going to be on there? Who is it that you need to attract to your platform for them to sell your goods? If you need to offer washing up services for somebody, you're going to need to have people who can wash up, or because that's still a physical thing. So again, the blend between how the digital part of your platform relates to the physical world and the physical goods and services that might be consumed needs to be thought through. Some platform businesses are purely digital, but mostly they will always have some end effect in the real world. There's always an actual human being that usually uses it in some shape or form and consumes something that is derived from it. And we're not going to talk about completely internal platforms. But I think, again, we should not rule out, and another big driver for platform businesses is for those traditional businesses who recognize that, hang on, if we don't do something soon, somebody else is going to come in and make us irrelevant or rethink. So how do we try to disrupt ourselves and bring in digital innovation through a platform to survive and thrive and compete in the new landscape? And then once you have that thought through, and coming back to technology, you've got to think through exactly, who are the actors, what is it they need, what are the technologies that are absolutely a must in terms of doing this. Platforms are pretty much all standard on the cloud. That's almost a given, but there are choices of which technology stacks to use, and that is critical. And having a kind of really knowledgeable technology partner to guide through that process can help at that stage. And of course, then you've also got to think about monetization at some point. Where does monetization comes in? Typical of designing a platform business is to work out, you have to think through all these different stages, and you've got to get enough money to get you at least to launch. So how's that going to happen? Depending on your ambition and what the platform needs to do, that can require a lot. And most platform businesses look to bring in external funding to get through this, so angel or VC or something like that. And so again, the value proposition and architecture and the planning, you need to justify what kind of money you need to get you through to that launch. And then if it's an internal business, you might even have to make that internal business case to understand, okay, what kind of investment in time and external resources do we need to get there? Design, we're going to dig a bit deeper in for the rest of this talk, so I'll just go through the kind of remaining bits of these phases. The seeding phase is important, so that is where you've worked out in this architecture and design what maybe your minimal launch thing, what the minimal feature set is, what your minimal viable product is. And you've got to try to seed that with some people prior to launch, because if your platform, as most platforms, have to have something to transact or exchange, if you've got nothing on the platform, why would people be attracted to it? So you've got to think about how to bring people in and what it is that they've got. So if your platform is about delivering the best movies in the world, how are those movies getting on there? Who's providing it? Who are producing them? How are they getting onto to seed that, so that when you launch, there's something for your end user to actually see, because nobody is wanting to come in to a platform where there's nothing there. And so there's kind of typically a chicken and egg problem that you have to think about and design. And then once you've seeded enough and you're happy that you understand enough about the dynamics of your platform, then you need to plan to launch. And there's a lovely thing, I'll put the thing later, the idea is to aim how you're going to get your first 1,000 users. What are your strategies? What are your tactics to make sure you've got your first 1,000? Because then you start to get network effects about how, when you've got a platform with people on it, it attracts more people, and then it starts to scale. And scaling, of course, is one of the main motivations for wanting to develop a platform business in the first place. The ingredients of getting it right means that they can scale massively, and indeed globally, if that is your ambition. But again, you've got to have all of these pieces along the way before you could even think about how to scale. So let's, as I say, in those stages, let's now kind of just think about the elements of design. And here again, from the book I referenced, is an image that they use to try to kind of outline the key stages of what you have to do to enable a successful platform. And again, very much thinking about these two sides of design. You're designing for the producers, the people who are going to be adding content, goods, services, driving, washing up, whatever it is that your platform is going to be doing. And then the people who would benefit from that once it's there. More usually, you will concentrate first on, okay, how do you seed and make it attractive and bring in producers? And you need that critical mass of producers and attract them. And once you've got that, then that will attract the end users. Taking a video example again, if you haven't got great video on there and you're trying to then market to people who like videos, why are they going to come on? How are they going to hear about it if their first touch is not seeing anything? So, what's going to establish the blueprint for wanting them to either consume or add their own or do something else. So you need to get that critical mass and attract them. And then what the platform should do is know how to match the people coming on with what they want, and getting that right and designing that right is key to what makes a great experience. So again, if I've heard about a platform, I'm going on and I try it for the first time, I need to experience something that gets me just the right content I want, or just the right information I want, or just the right people, or the experience of actually buying that good or service is so quick that now that's where I'm going to go. So you've really got to try to tune the how you get the platform to really match up with the thing you want or the people you want to transact with. And then again, a core is kind of this idea within the platform of then you're typically part of a community or people that have kind of bought in to this platform. How do you then make the platform connect those people together in a good way? And then once you've got that, then you get to kind of building and thinking about making the transactions work. And then once you've fueled all of that, then you've got lots of data in your platform that you can learn and enhance. So I think again, it's useful to think about those different stages and designing and thinking about the actual design of your use case of how you're going to enable all of those features. So the producers, as I say in this model, are the people who be seeding the platform content, and you've got to think about what's their motivation and how to get them active. So again, what is it that you're designing in? And typically, some platforms that might be the end platform, but a different approach is that the producers might be using a slightly different interface, a more B2B design. So, for example, if you took makers or people who want to sell products on your new platform, then you might have a different interface that you're designing that allows them to kind of put their shop front up there, or put their goods or materials up there. So how will you design that so that their experience makes it easy? Because initially, again, depending on your funding model, you're either going to ask them for money or give it away free for a while, but you want to encourage them to put it on there because you need their things on your platform. So there's that kind of relationship about where along the trajectory is that something that your platform's so great that people want to pay you to get their stuff on it, versus no, we need you now. And a very common tactic for people building platform is to actually pay people to produce, to do things to seed their platforms initially. So either influencers or well-known celebrities, or just people who are good at writing copy or producing videos or whatever. So the power of having fantastic materials, content, goods on your platform is really, really important at that seeding time. So again, you've got to design and think about those. And then ultimately, of course, you've got to attract in the people who will actually be using what those people produce. So how do you design the interface and the end first touch in your platform? And the platform can, of course, encompass all sorts of things. It needs to be designed over maybe web. So perhaps the producers have a web-based content management system that's beautifully designed that they have a login to that only they can use to put their things on. But the users might just download an app and that's all they see, and everything's presented to them. So you've got to think through the different elements and who's doing what when. And then what you want are these kind of positive scaling network effects. And that's what you're trying to architect, that's what you're trying to design. So you want producers who create something that makes a fantastic experience for that first consumer when they come on board and user. And so when that user comes on board, you want them to then, wow, you want to design it so that they're sharing, they're liking, they're tweeting, they're using all of the other platforms that are out there for amplifying to others. So you're using these network effects that are already out there to try to attract people to your platform. And then once they've given positive feedback, that will then kind of improve the experience if you kind of use what they've said as part of the data to make the platform experience better, which will attract other users, and they in turn will attract more producers. And then that is the kind of virtual positive scaling cycle that you want to design and facilitate, so that you've got this positive network feedback effect, and think through all of that. And part of that, again, is in great design to try to, again, go back to your value proposition and focus on the core interaction, which is the heart of that. So again, it's very hard to keep it simple. It's much easier to put everything out there and then kind of tune it, and both can be okay, because it depends what you're doing. Some platforms might start with a well-established model and want to apply it to a new domain or a new use, and so you're kind of want to quickly establish the stuff that people are familiar with but add some new aspect. Or you might want to deliver something completely innovative that's never been done before, which of course is much riskier because you haven't got a blueprint, but keeping it simple. Interestingly, Clubhouse, which had a kind of a big boom effect for a while, again, they went with the sweet spot of concentrating on audio as a kind of communication sharing platform, which again was not quite what the other platforms did, and so that was novel for a while, and had a different use case. Whereas others, may follow a more traditional route and look to kind of new facilities or new capabilities to provide that innovated hook or spark. But what you want to do is design something that makes it sticky. You want people to have that first touch and come back. So again, a platform where people only need to use it once might have some benefits, but the network effects and actually want is a reason for people to come back again. And those design hooks are typically things like how they're rewarded. So, if people get hooked on likes or attracting other users in social platforms, people love the fact that if their first transaction they had was, came and it was marvelous and they love the product, then they're more likely to come back to your platform to use it again. So again, it's really focusing on what's your value proposition. Have you designed it so that you optimize that touch and make the experience as delightful and exciting as possible? And if you're kind of doing the same again but different, then you've got to kind of think about what gives it that extra pizzazz. What does this? And it might be that just the group that you're using have not used this before, so you might be trying to kind of go for a different target group who aren't yet familiar with some of the capabilities that you want to do. So again, there's many different contexts for designing and thinking about these platforms, but these ingredients are all the same: making something that has in it a delightful user experience and touch, and bring people back. And then another facet of going back to that roadmap about how people do is to then also be aware that you have to then be constantly on it. It's never finished, really, your design. You have to be prepared to design for things that you weren't expecting, and making the use of the actual real life experience and the evidence you've got from the people who are using your platform. So you need to design for those emergent behaviors that you weren't expecting. You need to design for things that you thought were great that people actually never use or can't find or didn't like. And then you've also got to design for, adapt to external forces. Those external forces can be somebody else coming out with something better, something that you thought you were launching and now they've upped their game and they've got better. So how do you adapt to that? It could be that again, part of your team that you've had to assemble to get to launch, if you've brought on an investor, that the investors have demands and they've got things that now they're seeing an opportunity and kind of putting pressure on to say, oh, hang on, we need I know you've got this plan, but we now want you to do this because this is the new thing. And then need to be aware also of feature creep. It's very, very tempting to try to just stick more and more in there, hoping that might make the difference. But again, it's again thinking about the design, taking on board that kind of user feedback, and if you can, be controlled about actually understanding and experimenting with either removing things that didn't quite work or adding in new capabilities. But in all of this, the easier time to do any of this is before you've launched. As soon as you've got legacy and you've got people on there, it's much harder. So again, understanding how you develop, perhaps continue to keep a kind of user group of trusted people where you can try out new features with before going straight out, or just stick it out there and have the kind of relationship with the people on your platform that you can bring them on the journey with you, so they're aware of the fact that you're responding to them and getting it right. So again, the other part of design is actually understanding how to design the kind of support features of your platform once you've got people on there. It would be not too wise to assume that you can design it so perfectly that you're never going to want to talk to your people or kind of apologize to them or talk to them or something. So again, that's part of designing the whole system, is understanding each of those milestones. And there's the link there I mentioned to a useful website of a chap who's pulling together lots of case studies of a lot of these very successful platforms and how they got to their first 1,000 users and all of the different tactics that they used, which is a very interesting read, because again, depending on your value proposition, there's no one thing that is a blueprint, but it's always good to be aware of what's worked for other people and whether that might work for you. So just to take those concepts and say how we've applied them as Calvium. So one of our clients is LabLinks, and we've developed a platform for them. And LabLinks' mission is to try to make the process for process chemists much easier for knowledge exchange, and utilizing some of the things that kind of is well known for other domains, but because historically, especially process chemists and the way the organization was grown up, there hasn't been as much freedom in being able to exchange ideas, exchange knowledge, and so forth. So its mission is to kind of allow chemists to link, learn, and succeed. And there they wanted to kind of quickly recognize that in their group, and their target audience, which are other chemists, that familiar things would be good. We don't need to rush to something completely high tech, high spec. So there is kind of an evolutionary approach, but then also tune a kind of well-known formula of being able to connect with in mechanism knowns with new and novel ideas. So again, working in partnership work with them. We have gone through that process, and some of the kind of additional ideas that are in there to do the learning. It's kind of then also considering and enabling a learning platform within the kind of environment, so that their producers can put course materials out there or and share things much more readily. There's also an eye on to the right there. We've leveraged Mozilla Hubs, which is an environment to kind of facilitate that more chance encounter and networking opportunity, where people can level up. Another goal of LabLinks was to try to enable more sharing by making it a level playing field. And again, one of the phenomena of long-standing traditional engineering or scientific things is that status is obviously important for many things. However, if you want to kind of have an environment where people are more open and sharing, it's good to try to enable a more leveling up, so that it's who you talk to rather than where they are and so forth. So we designed this little avatar so that it made it really easy for people from the platform just to wander into a 3D lounge and walk around all identical, and so you can kind of have a bit of fun and just chat. And so they'll be experimenting with things like allowing students to show posters in there and having that, as well as the other things which are more standard. And again, part of the design and working with them as the technical partners is to know when to create new, when to leverage, and when to enhance, depending on where they wanted to go. So another core part of what the LabLinks team are doing are seeding the platform through running events on it. And here we worked with another existing platform, Remo, for running events. And so what we did is made it a seamless experience to go from the LabLinks platform to use Remo and back again, just so that we could kind of again try to address their core desire to help scientists link, learn and succeed. So that was how we worked on LabLinks. And I'll turn now to one of our own platforms that we've developed as Calvium, and our award-winning, I'm pleased to say, double award-winning, I think, a place experience platform, which has gone through many different incarnations over the years. So we ourselves are no strangers to this desire to produce something and get feedback and see and try different things to see, you know, where the sweet spot is, what might work, and how to create something that it has longevity and sustainability in the long run. And the place experience platform is really aimed at those who want to connect people with places much easier and be able to tell stories and produce new experiences about the places that you are in. And the picture there shows one of the ways that we've kind of over the years developed a really close relationship with Exeter University. That is the Hidden Cities design template, where they are using the platform to produce historic trails of different cities, working with experts in that particular city, so researchers and academics in other universities who know intimate and really amazing details about the layers of the history and who lived there and so forth. And that what they have is a formula that allows those academics to use our platform to produce high quality, consistent, lovely experiential trails. So that is just one of the value propositions, if you like, that has been mediated through our place experience platform. Just as we said, in terms of the producers and the consumers, what our platform does is allow people interested in a place and creating a new experience for that place to use the kind of platform so as producers. So we have a really easy to use content management system where they can then deliver either, as in the case of Exeter, a historic trail, or, you know, again, some people come to us saying, well, I'd really like people to walk around and understand the impact of climate change on environments and produce something there. So there can be many motivations for wanting to connect people with where they are. And our platform is generic in that, you know, the building blocks, the tools, can enable these many different value propositions. And it's really for people who want to be able to create something and own it and deliver these things. And what our platform does is kind of give you a surefire way of producing their own app. So they'll own it and customize it within a kind of proven approach and template that can really connect people with where they are through trails, through storytelling, through augmented reality, or any of these kind of things. So they're all available within our platform building blocks that people can use to develop their own compelling app for people to use. And then once it's out there, you know, because they're individual apps, then, you know, anybody can download them from the App Store, and actually the end users are the people who then enjoy the experience. But throughout, then the producers can use our content management system to live updates. So, for example, if a council is interested in creating something around their city centre or their town, which might be, as Wiltshire Council have done, produced kind of trails around, if a particular place of interest or a point of interest changes or moves or something, it's possible for them to go into content management and change the information about that place, or change and adapt and push that out to the app. And again, thinking about the architecture and the design, this has been honed. But what Calvium was trying to do is to leverage the know-how and create something that means we can provide value for money for our clients, but we can then support multiple apps and clients in a way that is sustainable from a business model point of view. So then that's why we keep a common set of building blocks. And as those kind of features get developed and become more mature, we'll be able to offer that back out to any of the clients who are already on our platform. So that's what we have developed following that kind of design approach. And I kind of, to finish off, I'll just say that actually what we've recognized is, as I said, because our platform does allow people with different value propositions to just use it, one of the ways that we're actually trying to both develop the platform capabilities through our own funding and our own initiatives, and to kind of recognize that we want to give a little bit back to clients that we've known over the years, or people in arts and people who've been really struggling with places. And so we're actually going to use our own platform to create our own value app, which is Visit a Venue. And we're just announcing it for the first time today. And what we'd like to do along that journey is to seed it with Bristol venues first. So again, we've done a lovely project with We the Curious, so we'll be going to them and saying, hey, we've got this concept where we want to make something that is a really lovely experience for people to be able to discover venues in any town or city, and then really get an idea of what it's like easily, to work out, depending on your personal needs, is this for me? Is this a place I can go to with my grandchildren in a buggy? Is this a place that's going to work for me if I'm taking my elderly mother? Is it a place that's going to go for me if I want to have a party? And again, whilst you could go to every single website and the app will link out to the website, this will give you kind of a walkthrough and an idea of what it's like, with a kind of using the building blocks that we've created throughout the Place Experience platform. And so we're excited to kind of further develop that and see how people take to it. And I'm hoping that, again, if we get it really beautifully seeded with all of the Bristol venues, and it will be free for them all, that then it would start that spiral of attracting it and allowing other venues to take this opportunity to have a kind of another way of promoting that they're there and what it's like. And as I say, and initially, or there will be a base layer that will be free to all. So that's the end of my presentation. I hope there's something that was useful in there for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Jo. Do you want to stop sharing your screen now? Because I've got a few questions for you. Perfect. That was lovely. That was great. Thanks very much. So I've got two questions, two different people, but they kind of relate. So a similar area. One question says, what are the key skills that a team should have to create their own platform? So that leads into a second one, which is, how long do you recommend the first design phase to take as a proportion of the whole process? So really looking at the practical side, if you could just answer those.
Yes, really important question, and I forgot to mention the kind of technical skills as I went through, so I'm glad that came up. So again, I think for any of this, you definitely need to identify a product owner. So the role of the product owner is to kind of be the conduit between the technology team and the business counters, and really drive all aspects of the platform. You need to have in the tech team people who are able to understand and work with the product owner in terms of really understanding the goal and the mission, and advising on the kind of platforms, technical platforms, technology stacks and technology capabilities that could be possible. For example, many clients might be interested in, I've heard a lot about machine learning as an aspect of platforms. How might that come in at what point in the roadmap? And being able to advise on when and how, and the kind of costs that might be involved, so that people are aware up front about the risks or what is needed and the prerequisite. The other area of skills, for example, might be, okay, if the ambition of the platform is to connect more the physical world, so you're making more use of the Internet of Things, smart city type of sensor stuff, then you'll need people and relationships to be able to understand how to work with those different data feeds, different sensor types. So you need expertise in that. And then you'll also need to think about the longevity. So how then might you continue to support and maintain the platform when it's steady state? So you need a team who have expertise in understanding the experimental model, understanding how to rapidly prototype, perhaps to begin with, to test things out, but then turn it into a full production system, and have people who can, how you're going to run the support, how you're going to handle the customers, and then how are all the finances sorted out. So all of the peripheral IT infrastructure is all needed for a brand new platform business, certainly. But in an existing business, it's how that then sits with the others. So very strong technical expertise in, and user experience design is the other, of course, critical skill in terms of when you get into the detailed design of understanding how to make that user journey the best possible. And so those, I think, are some of the main ingredients that you'd need to pull this off.
Brilliant. And then feeding into the second part of the other person's question, but the second part, which was around the kind of the proportion of time, if you think of the whole process, from just starting the concept through to launching your platform, and as you say, managing, maintaining, is there do you have a recommended time for the design phase, which you've been talking about?
Yes. So again, a lot of it comes back to the scale of your ambition. But even in the most ambitious scale, I mean, nobody thinks of Amazon just as a bookseller anymore. If this platform is number one for some enormous world domination thing, then you break it down to the first thing that you're doing. But again, if once you've identified the first kind of platform value proposition and everything else, I think there's a kind of sweet spot of between 3 and 6 months to do things as quickly as possible. The other thing that's true about this world is it doesn't stay very still very long. So the number of external things that will change if you leave it a lot longer to kind of get something into the hands of users, get something out from thinking and design into seeding, testing, those first trials. I would recommend between 3 and 6 months. However, there might be other cases where you want to spend a lot longer in the design testing phase before you launch. And that would be cases where, if your impact is more about, say, social change or community change, those things by nature are actually take longer to understand the full impact of than a quick kind of more transactional platform. And so there, I think actually there your approach is one of continuous learning, and much more iterative in terms of understanding that everything is part of a much bigger journey, and involving more people in part of that design input, and being much more explicit about involving, say, the community in part of the design process. That is also a perfectly valid way to create a much more social purpose oriented platform, which may take longer depending on availability of people, time, and just being able to process that information.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. You mentioned, and you spoke of it here, so I'm going to go to this question because it fits perfectly, which is around change. So it's around adapting to external forces and designed for emergent forces. So the question is, how do you design a product? So I think this means by what approaches or methods when the roadmap is for an uncertain future. Have you got a few tips and techniques, I think?
I think the shorthand quip is it's almost the same as how do you eat an elephant, one bite at a time. I think you have to have some kind of goal in mind, whether it's reaching the moon or saving the earth or having these kind of people, and then you have to accept that the path for getting there, you've got to map out as best possible in your roadmap, but you can't pin it down, and so it is really tricky, especially, as I said, most of this might rely on satisfying somebody else who's funding it. So your ability to actually say, well, it's going to cost this much, but now suddenly it's going to cost 10 times more because we have to do this or we have to go over here. So those things aren't easy, but I think as much as possible it's taking it in chunks so that you will have a much bigger vision, and then the early part of that to get, say, to the first 1,000 is much more clearly specified and locked down and done, and then you need to then think, and then we'll always check and course correct, rather than say, well, we said we have to do this and we'll do it regardless of anything that's happening. So I think, again, the typical phases are, and kind of match the funding rounds almost. It's almost like you might do angel funding for the first prototype, and then you'd look for bigger for kind of the next 1,000 users, and then you'd go on for scaling. Or, of course, you then realize that something catastrophic has happened and you have to rethink. That's always a possibility with any product design. Not all platforms will succeed, and at what point you then, and what metrics you have to say, actually, let's think again. Let's and how do you back out of it if that's the case is another thing to consider in your kind of roadmap and reality.
Great, thank you. Now we turn our attention to the producers, because you'd said that quality content is important, and specifically for the Place Experience platform. Question is, are there content specialists for the platform that we could hire?
Yeah, definitely. So over the years, we've had some fantastic collaborations, and indeed, within Calvium, we have people that, if the client needs, that we can bring in, who either are fantastic at audio production, because audio is a really lovely way of being able to experience a place with your eyes open, actually looking out and being able to respond to what you see, rather than walking around with your face in a screen, while the Grand Canyon is around you and you're trying to look at it it's through the lens of a small mobile. So definitely, I think those kind of media production skills, there are lots of very talented people that we can draw on and collaborate with, and often actually have the incentive to kind of use our platform themselves. And so depending on exactly the kind of aspiration, the funding, or how much it really matters, I think all of those things are individual skills, and sometimes it's fine for relatively non-media savvy people to use our platform to produce a perfectly fine experience, because it's more factual, in the moment, something I need now. So, for example, the classic thing, if you're going out for a day, actually knowing where a toilet is absolutely fundamental and really, really useful, and can delight you if you get it at the right moment. And that's just as important as perhaps embracing some great augmented reality experience which has completely immersed you and done it. In terms of reward and things, both things can be equally delightful, but are very different skill sets in their ability to produce them. And of course, the Place Experience platform enables both.
Okay, and we've got time just for 2 more questions. Looking here, 5 minutes to go. So I will go with, here we go. My organization tends to be risk averse. Well, that's quite a normal situation. So how would I sell in the concept of developing our own digital platform when the pace of technology change is so fast? I don't know if you can answer that one. It's a bit of a
no, but I think again, the way that I would advise, and Calvium, and other agencies often do, is to embrace that kind of agile approach. And one of the good things about an agile approach might be that if you took its mantra seriously, you can fail fast. So you could almost then sell it internally that if we can bring in the right people who can develop something, say in 3 to 4 months as a proof of concept, you then have something more tangible that you can then make the argument for the next case. You can test it with people internally. You can bring people on that journey, and then you can bail out if it doesn't work, or you can then actually say, I've made a really good case for further funding. So it's kind of then a first step, a first toe onto that journey of digital transformation in a bounded, scoped way. Enough money to get that first early concept, discovery, proof of concept thing out there, so that then whatever your problem is, you can see that this could be a way of addressing that problem. And usually, of course, the sweet spot is when the problem's acute enough. That's when people will sit up and listen for an internal thing, because it's much easier to justify than a spend if actually what you can save has a very big number attached to it.
Great. And then the final one is a nice easy one, and that is around visit a venue, which, as you said, you're launching the concept and the thing now. And so we've got a few questions which are basically, how can we find out more about Visit a Venue?
Yeah, well, we hope that again that we will, especially for anybody, we'd be happy for them to contact us through our website or email me directly, Joe at Calvium. We're keen to start to discuss the concept with a few venues and see whether we can attract them, to get them on there, go on the journey with us to see actually how we can make this a really valuable service to attract people back to our very fine places and help people, as we're seeing people are emerging from their homes and getting back out in the world, and it'd be lovely to actually make places less fearful for people if they want to go on that journey.
Perfect. All right, and that's it. Well, thank you very much. Thanks to Joe, and from both of us, thanks very much to the lovely audience out there. So thanks to yourselves for joining us for this session. It's just been great to have you here. A lovely opportunity for me to find out more about what Joe's been up to and what she's been thinking about. And we'd love for you to enjoy the rest of the Bristol Technology Festival. And also, if you have any questions for us, do get in contact with Calvium, and have a lovely rest of the day and enjoy the rest of the festival. Cheerio, everybody.